Welcome to 9/11, the New Pearl Harbor. Bob Martin's taking the night off. I'm Simon Polakowski, your host. Tonight I have a guest, Freeman, with me. But before we get to our guest, I'd like to remind people that our guest Freeman will be at RB Winning's Coffee Shop tomorrow night. That's 111 Harvard Southeast from 6:30 to 10 p.m. That's RB Winning's 111 Harvard Southeast. And he'll give a lecture from 6:30 to 10. There's the announcement. And before we get to our guest, I would like to show you a clip of Pastor Lindsey Williams and what the power elite have to say to us. And this is from a interview with Pastor Lindsey Williams. So we'll go now to Lindsey Williams and what the power elite tell us.
One thing I learned when I lived with the elite of the world, that is that they use buzzwords. And I remember that in the code of ethics, remember I had been a pastor of a church for 12 years prior to going to Alaska. And when I lived with these elite, I could comprehend some of what they were saying because I'd done so much counseling with people, plus I'd taken psychiatry in college in order to get my degree. And as a result, I learned that the elite have a code of ethics. Now, it's not your code of ethics and mine. It's quite contrary to that of the Bible. But the elite of the world do have a code of ethics. And in their code of ethics, part of it, one of the facets of it is, we must tell the world everything we're going to do before we do it. Now, if you know how to listen to their buzzwords, you will know what they're trying to tell you. For instance, you remember George Bush Sr. used the expression one time, Daddy Bush, New World Order. He was the first one to ever introduce that expression. He used to also use an expression, 1,000 points of light. Nobody knew what he was talking about. His elite friends all knew what he was talking about. And he was telling the world what he was going to do, but he was saying it in such words that later on he would say, I told you so, why didn't you listen? Mm-hmm. And every bit of it was a plan of them doing what they wanted to do, from the building of China to the getting of trillions of dollars worth of our paper into the hands of the oil-producing countries of the world, to the getting into the hands of China over one.
Yes, so there is Lindsey Williams, and he says in that clip, they have to tell us what they're going to do to us. And they use words and they use symbolism. And I have with me tonight a man, Freeman, who, again, I'd like to remind people, will be lecturing tomorrow night at RB Winning's Coffee at 111 Harvard Southeast. And as the pastor said, they have to tell us what they're going to do. And I find that very true. And you've been studying this phenomenon for quite some time now.
Quite a while, yeah. Since 1993, really, I began on my travels and my understandings of how this might work, following symbolic gestures is what I call them, and have been able to predict many events using these symbolic gestures, knowing that they were going to use a W as an example for, I understood the meaning of this symbolism. Leading me right up to the prediction of saying that a major event would occur on 9/11, knowing the meaning of these symbols.
So how is it that, what got you interested that, these people are actually using symbols and words, and they're telling us things that are going to happen. How does, to me, I've been to our nation's capital, and when you go to the nation's capital, the first thing you see is this giant obelisk. Right. And it's the tallest structure in our nation's capital. And, it's incredibly imposing over the rest of the Capitol. And if you go inside of it, you see, I believe every Freemason's lodge has its shield is represented inside the obelisk itself. And as we all know, there was an earthquake in Virginia, and a group called the Carlisle Group has said that they would help rebuild the obelisk, fix it so it can be visited again by tourists.
Right. Yeah, we were just there for the Occupy DC. We've actually been to Occupy Philly, Occupy Wall Street, Occupy DC. What I try to impress upon people is the amount of effort that is required to put pentagrams into a street layout. Now, we know that L'Enfant and George Washington were the major architects behind the design of the street layout for Washington, D.C. Now, what most people don't recognize is their secret society connections, which goes back to the ancient order of the Freemasons. And once you start to put this puzzle together, then you can understand the symbolic nature, and you can also understand what Lindsay is telling you about them requiring your agreement, requiring your acceptance. You see, Masonry, as you have here, the illustrated history of Masonry.
Yeah, if we could go to, again, this is the Illustrated History of Freemasonry by Moses W. Redding. This book is available in the public library. And as Freeman has said, he talks about the symbolism. I'd like to quickly read from page 22. This is not something that we've made up. This is something that they concur with, that they admit to. It says here on page 22, the priests, seeing that it was impossible for the neophyte to perceive the truths of science and religion except when illustrated by symbols, used symbols adapted to that purpose. Consequently, two forms of ethics and religion began to prevail, one for the initiates in the higher mysteries and the other for the mass, who could perceive nothing beyond the symbol or image with which they were instructed. Therefore, they naturally came to worship the image, and hence became pagans with all that term signifies, including orgies charged to the mysteries. So they admit that their symbols are more than symbols.
Exactly, yes. And if you were to pick up Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, you can find this at your library, I'm sure. Morals and Dogma is an outline of the 32 degrees of Freemasonry, where a man, Albert Pike, who was actually a war criminal back in the Civil War, was charged with the duty of writing out all of the different Masonic degrees that there were up to the 32, and leaving out the 33rd degree because that's mystery. But in this document, over 70 times he mentions that Freemasonry is the Kabbalah. Now, many of you heard about the Kabbalah through Britney Spears or Madonna or even Ashton Kutcher, but Freemasonry is based upon this ancient Hebrew mysticism. And so when we start to talk about this type of symbolism that we're seeing, I was going to show you my dad. If you want to go real quick, there is my father. In his worshipful master's outfit there, you see with the pentagram behind him. You'll see that he's wearing that blue apron with the eye symbolized right over the groin or the lower base chakras. These are their ritual instruments that they would use, the gavel, the plum, the level, and then they would use corn, wine, and oil to invoke spirits into buildings in the cornerstone laying ceremonies. When you see my father up there, now as a worshipful master, that's why he has the top hat on, as the worshipful master, therefore he was brought into secret government projects. He was brought into, well, you can't be an astronaut if you don't kneel at the altar of Freemasonry. You'll see that my father was on the original killer submarine with Jimmy Carter. And then he went on to chase flying saucers in Project Blue Book. When I was born, my father was building nukes for Martin Marietta. So this was my awakening. So my father came to me after I realized that he was a Freemason. I was in college, and I recognized the symbol. I had a friend who told me, hey, look at this compass, square, and G symbol. And I was like, oh my God, I recognize this. And I realized that I used to wear my dad's cufflinks as space insignia when I was a child. and playing Battlestar Galactica, which actually plays into this whole story. But so I recognized that my father was a Freemason. I began to question him about it, but he never once pushed me to go. And the thing is that within Freemasonry, the idea is to be one, ask one. This is their message, because they are not allowed to recruit. Now, this is because when you walk into a Masonic lodge, it says that you have accepted this of your own free will and accord. And as a matter of fact, you have to state that to enter the altar. And I've seen altars that FDR knelt at. He broke with his leg brace. Houdini knelt at that very same altar. All the creators of Hollywood knelt at that altar. If you go to the New York Grand Lodge, you'll see the start of Hollywood is there. You'll see, the list goes on and on, from Arnold Palmer to Buzz Aldrin to John Wayne, you know? And so I started to see a secret net inside of everything.
And, you say that you predicted that something like 9/11 would occur, and it did occur. And how was this that, you had this, you saw this through the symbolism that was being used? Because there are many people out there, and myself included, 9/11 was not only a physical act, but also a spiritual act. And if you listen, we're not going to play it tonight, the late President Eisenhower's address on the military-industrial complex, he talks about how it affects the human spirit. So there are many different levels at which this acts. And tonight, we're with Freeman here, we're approaching what many believe is this spiritual level, which these shock and awe acts turn on our psyche, the human psyche.
Absolutely. Let's start with corporate logos and lead up to that.
Okay.
So that way we can see how the symbolism plays out, how it turns out to be. Okay. So here you see the corporate logos of all your favorite corporations around the world. Mm-hmm. Now, I can absolutely bona fide that Roy Kroc of McDonald's is a Freemason. Dave Thomas of Wendy's is a Freemason. The founder of RCA is a Freemason. Sam Walton of Walmart is a Freemason. I've been to all the lodges. I've tested it. I've checked it. I know it's true. So now each and every one of these corporate logos that you see is actually a Freemasonic symbol. I express on the side there, as you can see, the different types of symbols that you will see. But what you find, like reading Albert Pike, you'll find that they do believe these symbols have power.
Power.
But what I also see on this is signs of allegiance, so that they know that the Starbucks fish goddess is their symbol. Then they know to raise that company and corporation to a higher place. And this is why Starbucks is at the top, not because they have the best coffee in the world. Okay, so
they've been chosen by their fellow members to be successful. So being initiate into like an organization, into a group, is the key to success.
It is.
The road to success.
But what is the payment, you know?
So well, we're going to go on and we're going to find out what is this payment.
Okay, well, let's step back one more time and go to number 2 there, the very first picture, because this is where my story began, Y2K. And many people thought that I was going to be sitting in a bunker somewhere freaking out over Y2K, right? Now, I will say I had some stores. I had some water because FEMA and DOD were telling me to prepare. But when I told the public and said, hey, your government's telling you to prepare for this event, they all said, you can't believe what you read on the internet. I'm like, that's a .gov statement there, or you can't believe what you see. But there was so much symbolism going into the Y2K symbolism. You'll see Anubis standing there in front of the pyramids. Now, that is the god of the dead, the guardian of the dead of the Egyptians. And they're dressed all as men in black, almost in a UFO type of scenario, standing out in front of the pyramids where they did the 12 dreams of the sun. And you'll find all of this in my first DVD, and of course all on freemantv.com. It's all free there. You'll see the ritual itself, you see, because they were going to cap the Great Pyramid with gold. And the headline on the USA Today, December 18th, 1999, read, "Muslims stop the Freemasons from capping the Great Pyramid with gold." Okay? That was the headline of USA Today.
Wow.
So I can't get the paper anymore. They're sold out. I've been trying to get a copy. If anybody's got December 18th, 1999, USA Today, send me a picture of it or something. It says, "Muslims stop the Freemasons from capping the Great Pyramid with gold." Next thing we know, we're getting into this shock and awe situation, right? Well, it was Bill Clinton, and that moment you saw there in the picture where he's kind of turning purple. That was the moment that they brought him before the public to discuss an extramarital affair he had with his secretary, Monica Lewinsky. And of course, I heard on the radio today a joke about the, the cigar. Anyway, close but no cigar
Yeah,
was the joke this
yeah.
morning. Anyway, but you see, they brought that cigar scenario out into the public. You see his face there. This is the moment that he is freaking out because they have destroyed his character in front of the world. Now, tell me, when do they destroy a national leader's character in front of the public on live national television for everyone to see, bringing up such heinous acts as insertion of a cigar into your secretary? This was psychological warfare.
Well, it was probably to show that when they do these things, it's to embarrass that the government and to make light of the office that this person occupies, so that none of these people can really be taken seriously. It's kind of like a circus, because when you remember this impeachment process, it gathers this carnival and circus type atmosphere. I mean, for myself personally.
And that was exactly right. It was a psychological effect on humanity, where we then saw this man of the people. He was up there playing his saxophone on David Letterman. He was one of us in our eyes. Now, if you were to check out Anna Nicole Brittany in Mind Control, you'll see him, Bill Clinton, under mind control, acting as a 9-year-old child. Okay, the mind control story and the Manchurian Candidate side of this is a whole nother side. Okay, these people are programmed, they're engineered. His wife is a witch. This is open knowledge, and he was used, right? He was a tool. So why would they bring this man out in front of the public and destroy him in this way? It wasn't to destroy him. He was already destroyed. It was to destroy us. It was to destroy our hearts. So here was the man of our people up as the president, taken down for a crime that most people don't consider criminal. An extramarital affair. All right, Hillary's a cold woman.
So what they did, something that was very human, could have happened to almost anyone, was blown out of proportion. And we call ourselves supposedly like a Christian nation, and we thought, well, to me, the more you screw up, and especially in a minor way, the more human you become, I think. And maybe because when you put somebody as a president, you raise them and you make a god out of them, it seems like.
Right.
Almost. They become godlike.
Yes, they are our gods, our icons. No one says that better than Obama. But of course, there was a lot of Bush god symbolism that came out of that scenario too. So yes, they destroyed this man, and it was that moment that said to me, all right, if this is psychological warfare, if they're trying to destroy the hearts of humanity, most especially America, then the next step would be, well, first, okay, during the Clinton era, we constantly had the attempt of creation of the Homeland Security Department. They had Tom Ridge, governor of Pennsylvania, in the wings waiting to be the head of Homeland Security, even though there wasn't yet a Homeland Security Department.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So he was already administrator of an administration that didn't exist. They had him ready. They had all the legislation ready for Homeland Security. So each year, on October 1st, this bill would come up.
Oh, the Omnibus Terrorist Act.
Right, exactly.
And this is what we've shown here on our show when we've had the time. We've shown A Noble Lie about Oklahoma City. And because of the terrible event of the bombing of the Murrah building in Oklahoma City, they passed, finally, this omnibus terror bill, which, again, intrudes, was the slow turning of our country into a police state. And of course, you don't want to do it all at once because people will, cringe. But if you do it slowly, and again, if you use the symbolism, and as they did in Oklahoma, a city which was, I'm not denying the terrible act of this bombing, the murder, especially where we see, children that are victims, because this is, again, the slaughter of innocence,
Right.
which I think, this is what, when we see something like this, this is what really, well, to all of us, when we see that innocence has been destroyed.
Right, and that is truly the true outcome of all of this is the destruction of innocence. Innocence could save us all, and honestly, that had a lot to do with what we're seeing. And of course, Tim McVeigh came out of what was known as Elohim City, which also plays into their whole scenario there. But the Homeland Security Department was not yet made from that act, right? It wasn't
No.
destructive enough. There wasn't
No.
enough death and carnage.
No.
So this bill continued to come up every October trying to pass that. So at this point, I started to decipher these corporate logos. I saw the gold and arches of McDonald's as symbols of the Knights Templar, who were known for gold and arches.
Oh,
And of
okay.
course, as I say, Ray Kroc was absolutely a Freemason, and the Knights Templar, their skull and bone symbolism, all of it plays into the same story. As I went through the different corporate logos, and I got to the sun sign of Target, the pentagram of Walmart, and then I started to dismantle the gas station corporate logos. The VV of Chevron, or the double cube of their Masonic altar, is what the Chevron symbol is. But I got to Shell and to Texaco, and you have the shell and the pentagram. Now, this is a symbol of their goddess. Now, that's why you will always find the goddess in these different Britannia in England. You have Columbia in America. This goes all the way back to Ishtar and Inanna of Sumer. So the symbolism of the goddess is something that they have been tracking, and I've done, I think, the only documentary on our goddess, Columbia. But so as I got through those and I saw that the pentagram and the shell, I said, these are symbols of Venus. And of course, Venus in the dictionary is Lucifer.
Oh, okay.
And so then you got kind of this Luciferian connection. Well, I got to Phillips 66. And we're on Highway 66 here. Okay, so the 66 symbolism was very pertinent, constant, and I said, well, what is it? Why 66? What's the point? And I very easily went to a Kabbalistic dictionary. I looked up the number 66 because I know Freemasonry is Kabbalism, and I come across that it is the number of what's known as the Qliphoth. All right, what's the Qliphoth? It is the fallen angels. 66 is the number of the fallen angels, and this is also known to them as their great work.
The number 66.
The number 66.
I'd like to point out that a anti-Castro group called itself Alpha 66.
I can
So-
list you 66s to blow your mind from here to tomorrow.
It seems like when you see the repetition of these signs, there must be a reason for them. It's like a commercial.
Yes.
They say it's, repetition, and that's reinforcement. And so, and like you said, logos are the most ominous signs we see.
Oh, they're
And
prevalent.
and you see them everywhere. And so we don't have to see the words, we just see, oh, that's one of them.
Right. And maybe the genetic memory takes over the rest, but beyond that, they see it. And they know what this is coded. If you saw the Madonna occult Super Bowl ritual, you will see a bunch of OXs. Now, in English, there's only one word you can get that equates to 666, and that is F is the 6th letter, O is the 15th letter, and X is the 24th letter. So 15, 1 and 5 equals 6, 2 and 4, 2 and 4 equals 6. So FOX is Fox,
Fox
equals
News.
666.
So you have Fox News.
Right. So now go back to the VW logo there. And when you see that in Hebrew, the letter V is 6. This is not like Roman numerals. In Hebrew, Vav, or V, equals 6. And so if you see the corporate logo there for Hitler's Volkswagen, which was
Yeah.
to be the car of the people, you'll see that it's actually 2 V's interlaced. So that's the 66 of the fallen angels, or those of that died insane is another definition. Excrement is the third. But you'll see that in crossing the 2 V's, it made a third V. So a coded 666 in the Volkswagen logo, using Kabbalism, which we know Hitler was well into this Kabbalism. He was out to take out all the different magicians. And if you look at Philip 66 crest, you'll see that there are 6 points on the crest, another coded 666. It was this very symbolism of the 66 and the W that allowed me to see through the symbolic gestures and predict that they were going to force the next president into office. So the next step of the symbolic gestures, once they destroyed the man Bill Clinton, destroyed our hearts, destroying the one man that was like ourselves, and then to force in a war president was, to me, the next step. I said they're going to force a president into office, and then he'll be the last American president. And so far, I haven't been wrong. So to me, forcing in the W, which is excrement, which is the Dark Lord. Even in Star Wars, when they took over the Jedi, he says, execute Order 66, and they kill all the Jedi. This is a consistent symbol. In Fringe, you'll see that they have FF in the alternate universe, 66, once again. It's consistent. And it goes to this other dimensional, otherworldly beings that they do these rituals towards. Now, I have here the Monster drink, just as one more example of a corporate logo. You'll see there the Hebrew letter V, and of course you can compare it to there, and you'll see that Monster drink. Your Monster is 666. This is the Hebrew letter V there.
Well, I know, looking again, if you go to like the Illustrated History of Freemasonry and you go to Morals and Dogma, I like to remind people that when you talk about Albert Pike was the founder of the Ku Klux Klan,
Right.
which is the 11th letter of the alphabet, the letter K. So it's K, K, K. It's 33, 11, 3 times. And I remind people that the First World War ended in the 11th month, on the 11th day, at the 11th hour. And that on September 11th, a 110-story building fell, which is 11. Another 110-story building fell, which is 11. And then a 47-story building fell, which is 11. Which is, beyond, to me, they talk about coincidence. When does coincidence end and planning start? And again, here we are, supposedly a Christian nation, and I always tell people I'm not a Christian, but if people want to believe in Christianity, I have nothing against belief. And yet we are defended by the pentagram, the Pentagon. And I was thinking, I don't believe that a pentagram is a Christian symbol at all. So this to me, why would we be defended by a pentagram when we're told, this is
Witchcraft.
Witchcraft. There you go. So it's obvious the people who serve there, the ones that know that it is witchcraft, and the ones that don't know are, as Moses Redding says, these are the pagans, the ones who worship the symbol but do not know its meaning.
Exactly. And I challenge you to find a single Jesus in our nation's capital. They have George Washington deified, right?
That's true.
The apotheosis of George Washington at the Capitol Dome. They've got every goddess up there, but you won't see a single image of Jesus in our nation's capital. But yeah, once again, that is the milk for the babes. It is the symbol that they have attached to and not the story.
Oh yeah, and I've been reminded. I'd like to remind people. There's a book I read once called the 3 New Deals. It's made by the name of Schwivelbush. But in Washington D.C., actually in America, before the Second World War, during the New Deal, there were more buildings built in this country with columns than any other place. And as our camera person is showing us, I like to remind people the numbers 9/11.
Yes.
Now,
Let's talk about that.
What about the significance of 9/11/2001?
Okay. So once I had recognized that they had this psychological warfare going over a long span of time, leading right up to Obama being a non-American citizen, forcing W into office, as I predicted. Now, HW, his father, those letters mean Emperor of the Fallen Angels. So H is the letter of the Emperor, and HW, the Fallen Angels. So as I started to look deeper, and I expected them to make it obvious that George Bush was forced into office. So the whole Jeb-Bush connection made it too obvious. Everyone could see, everyone could get angry. And anger is their point. They wanted you angry about this. So, but I started cluing in and expecting an event around the middle of September because, as I was saying, the Homeland Security Department legislation came up every October 1st, so they needed an event to occur somewhere in the middle of September. Well, once George H.W., the Emperor of the Fallen Angels, had given his New World Order speech on 9/11, 1990, this is what clued me into the numbers. And I started, because I had already now recognized how ritual they were. And once I was clued in on those numbers, 9/11, I started to look deeper. And you can go to Aleister Crowley, you can go to his accolades, such as Kenneth Grant, and you can go to all the high witches of the Church of Satan, and I have spoken to many, and find out that 9/11 are the most satanic numbers by their reckoning. 9, they say, is the most satanic because it always folds back in on itself. 9 times anything equals 9. If you've ever noticed this, 9 times 2, 18, 1 and 9, it's 9, and you can just go on with that. 9 times 3, 27, 2, 7, 9. And so 9 is the satanic number because Satanists are very selfish. 11 is the number of manifestation. It is the number of the magician, if you will. And so this is why you have all the Ks, and K being the 11th letter, and circle K, of course. And so the manifestation of the selfish nature is the satanic meaning of 9/11. And you, as I say, can double check all of this through such occultists as Aleister Crowley or Kenneth Grant. They even have entire books on these very numbers.
Well, I'd like to point out, people, that the Pentagon,
Cornerstone.
construction of the Pentagon was begun on September 11th, 1940.
That's right.
You can look that up. You can look that up. There's a book called The Pentagon, in the building of it, and they'll say the first day of construction was September 11th, 1940. The construction of the pentagram actually would be more appropriate.
Well, the Masonically laid cornerstone in the Pentagon is dated to 9/11, so you can confirm that. But I will go a step further and say that the cornerstones of the Twin Towers were also dated to 9/11, 1973 or 4. They're gone now, and I can no longer prove this, but I knew this before when I was doing my symbolic studies. And there again, the Twin Towers of the 9/11, the 11 symbol in the towers. Now, I interviewed the Twin Tower architect, Paul Affley, and he came to me and he said, well, it was the bin Ladens that built the Twin Towers.
How was that?
They were one of the main construction companies involved with building the Twin Towers. He said that the turban men walked up to him while the Twin Towers were still on paper and asked him where they could place the demolition charges.
Now, who did he
in the
work
building.
for?
He worked for Yamasaki.
Okay, Muraru, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce Mr. Yamasaki's first name. So I have to apologize, but Mr. Yamasaki's firm designed the World Trade Center, all the buildings except for building number 7, which I believe was built later on in addition to the World Trade Towers. But so this man worked for Yamasaki's firm in Detroit then. And I'd like to point out one thing, that Mr. Yamasaki built a low-income housing in St. Louis of 33 buildings, 11-story buildings, and they were all demolished in the early 70s by implosion. All 33 buildings were demolished. I kind of find that, kind of strange myself. In fact, you can look them up. I think it's called Igo Prudo buildings. They were a massive housing project that was built in St. Louis in the late 50s. In fact, a couple of brothers by the name of Spinks grew up in them. But this man, he worked in Mr. Yamasaki's bureau. He's an architect.
He's very famous. He did a design for the Freedom Tower as well.
Also, it wasn't accepted then, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
And he was actually fired by Yamasaki for suggesting that there should be passageways between the two towers in case there was a fire or something that might happen. And Yamasaki fired him on the spot for suggesting these because he wanted his Twin Tower symbolism. He wanted the vibration of that 11 symbol. And he had designed the two towers to be a little taller than the other because of the Rockefeller brothers' height difference.
Oh yeah, I like to remind people that they used to call the towers, one of them Nelson and the other one David, because when they were built, Nelson was the governor and he pushed this project, and David, who was head of Chase Manhattan Bank, also pushed this project. And they were instrumental in getting the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey to invest, at that time, which was a tremendous amount of money, close to $1 billion in this of, again, the Port Authority being a quasi-private public corporation. So we need to study more. When we hear somebody say, well, this is a public-private corporation, private-public, we need to study these things, people. And we ask everybody here, again, I like to tell my viewers that don't take what we say here as gospel. Enlighten yourselves, learn, go to the library, get a book like this out, the illustrated book of Freemasonry. Go to Freeman's website. Maybe we could put Freeman's website up on the board here. Mike can do that. Well, we're asking everybody to enlighten themselves, learn,
Right.
and to think. We're asking everybody there's Freeman's website, www.freemantv.com. We're asking people to think about these things. We're asking, we want people to become free.
Right, absolutely. Can I add two things here that
Sure.
I think many people missed for Y2K to 9/11?
Okay.
Because now I was awake and aware at Y2K. I was looking at the symbolism of the capping of the Great Pyramid with gold when Bill Clinton came out before and said it is a rising sun, and all of the symbolic gestures that they did in this. I was awake and aware already to the nefarious sorcery that I see our elites doing. So now, during Y2K, there was a big commotion when they said they needed to design and build Command Central. Command Central was a deep underground base that they needed to have all the natural resources routed through in case of a massive catastrophe or a terrorist act. Now, one of these natural resources that are routed through Command Central, which cost billions of dollars, they were making it all public. Everything about Command Central you can go look up except for its location. But it was news because they needed the money. And what they said is, this is going to save everything. Don't worry. We will build this deep underground base. Well, one of those natural resources was the stock market. So now you tell me, if they spent all this money on Command Central and Y2K to route the stock market in case of a terrorist attack, why was the stock market shut down for 3 days after the Twin Tower fell? I'm just asking. All right. Now, Lindsay Williams was talking about the symbolism and how that they have to tell us what they're going to do.
Yes.
Okay. I predicted 9/11. All right. I have no proof of this other than the eyewitnesses that I could bring forward, and you could believe them whether you want to or not. I didn't know about Alex Jones. I didn't know about Bill Cooper. I didn't know who to go to with the knowledge I had. We didn't have the internet back then. It wasn't like it is today. I had no method of telling anyone, so I just told everyone I saw, right? I told everyone. I went to a party and I announced it at a party. Hey, there's going to be a major terrorist attack on 9/11. Don't freak out. It's all for your reaction. And in this, I meant in many different ways. I meant don't freak out because it's don't freak out and become a 9/11 truther, because that's part of the agenda too. So it split us in these the believers and the non-believers, right? And so now we're at war with these people that don't believe 9/11 was an inside job. But both conspiracies were contrived. The 9/11 truth, I feel, was also bolstered and brought forward through, come on, a passport fell unburnt out of the building. We're supposed to know that's ridiculous. So when on 9/11, I was woken by a group of people demanding how I knew this was going to happen. Now, when I awoke, I had no idea what they were talking about. I didn't have television.
Yeah.
I didn't know what they meant. It actually took me a whole nother week to see the Twin Towers fall. But I had predicted the day, and I had a line of people out my door. If we can go to that image of number 8, because this is, as a conspiracy theorist, I was quite shocked of what I had seen. Because 3 people in my line already had their bills, their $20 bills, folded to look like the Twin Towers burning. Now, if you take from the 5 to the 100 and you fold them all in identical manner, and that is like an airplane in a way.
Yes.
And you fold all of them, the 5 to the 11 or to the 100.
Yes.
Now, the $1 has never changed.
Yes.
That's their main pantacle, their main magical spell.
Yes.
It has all their symbols on it. They're not going to do away with it. That's, the one there is their main symbol. That's why it's never changed. But the 20s and the rest were changed in 1996. And so in 96, you were able to fold these bills and see the Twin Towers burning. The 5 shows you the Twin Towers. The 10 shows the first strike. The 20 shows the 2 strikes. The 50 shows the towers fallen, and the 100 simply a wisp of smoke. It was identical to what they were doing. So now, in my opinion, and this one was a difficult one for me, because I had people at my door on 9/11 with their dollars folded already, this was something the elite wanted you to know. And they broadcast it. Just as when you signed into AOL on January 1st, 2000, the poll question on AOL was, would you take a national ID card? Oh, innocuous little AOL, of course, with their eye in the pyramid symbolism, and Time Warner and their eye in the pyramid symbolism. Just don't worry, nothing to it. In the same way, we've had these bills in our hands already for 5 years. And I wonder sometimes if our holographic mind might be able to already see those bills, folded or otherwise. But the truth of the matter is that it was promoted and produced on 9/11, shown to the world that you could do this with the dollar bills. And I used that to make my next prediction. And that was 10/13,
10/13.
which I did live on Alex Jones. Because I didn't have an outlet for my 9/11 prediction. I didn't have a method of getting this knowledge out to you, and I didn't know I was right, okay? I've never known I was right. But then I took this same symbolic gestures and I turned it on the picture of money, and I said they're going to crash the banking system on 10/13.
Oh, yeah, October, yeah.
This is a Templar symbol, 10/13. It's also the corporate logo for Chris Carter in the X-Files.
Oh, I wanted to tell people, well, we talk, I'm still very interested in the assassination of JFK because of the symbolism in it. I tell people he went down Houston Street. Well, Houston is, if you look up the meaning of Houston, its origins, it means Hugh's place, and St. Hugh was a child who was found killed in Lincoln, and they go, President Kennedy was shot in a Lincoln, and that 10, as we were shown, officer 10/13 means officer down,
Really?
and
Firefighters.
10/13. So that's a code, 10/13.
Yeah, same as 9/11, 911 being our.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the symbolism, I tell people, the 22nd of November is the anniversary of when a group of men left a railroad station in New Jersey and went to Jekyll Island, where they came up with the idea of the Federal Reserve System, that this is not, these dates, they're a reason why we celebrate anniversaries.
Right.
And that, President Kennedy went down Elm Street, which is a funerary symbol for the Greeks. And when you look at their operations, when they destroyed the democratic government of Iran, they called it Operation Ajax. When they called the Bay of Pigs, they called that Operation Pluto. Pluto is the god of Hades,
Right.
the god of hell.
And Shekinah actually plays upon the Hebrew goddess and is the Shekinah. The Shekinah force is also used in Freemasonry. They say it's the secret cloud of brotherhood that surrounds their Masonic altar. But so Shekinah was a play upon Shekinah. Now, realize that oh God, it's not Saddam Hussein. Yeah, Saddam Hussein. I'm getting my wars all confused here. Was claiming to be Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated.
Oh yeah, he was rebuilding all
He was
the
rebuilding the Tower of Babel and Babylon, and had artwork and architecture made showing him as Nebuchadnezzar. Well, then they came in and hit him with the Shekinah using the Shekinah, the force of God, which is what is around the Ark of the Covenant, and they destroyed him with the mother of all bombs, which is known as the Moab. And it was the Moabites that took out Nebuchadnezzar.
Oh,
You
okay.
see? And so all of this plays in. And it was Woody Harrelson's father that went screaming to a Yellow Springs, Ohio jail that it was he that fired the killing shot that killed JFK. Woody Harrelson's father
Oh, yes.
is certain.
Well, he's passed away now.
Well, he was in prison for shooting a judge. He is a contract killer for the military, and
Yeah, he was, very few people know that. He was, where they show the photograph of the three hobos. And there's a
three
man,
tramps on the knoll.
Three tramps on them, where the police have their guns pointed down, not at these suspects. You see a man who looks like Woody Harrelson's father.
It is Woody Harrelson's
and his
father.
hair is disheveled. And of course, we have photographs that George H.W. Bush was there on that day. And there's many others there. I'm positive the people very close to this, they were all there, and they were going, well, this is where the bastard gets it. And they were waiting, and sure enough, and people were going, when after the shots, they turn around, the guy's gone who said that. And they had their observers. There's that comedian who passed away from Texas who had Bill Hicks, who would go, oh, did you ever think they show all the new presidents a film of JFK's assassination that no one's ever seen, but they've done it? So, we only know what they tell us.
Right. And they program us. So let's combine this story with Hollywood. We saw all the numerous uses of Hollywood in the 9/11 symbolism, from The Simpsons to The Matrix, right?
Oh, yeah.
All of it's 9/11 symbolism. Now, to me, this wasn't as a projection so much of the terrorist attack of 9/11, but the use of the satanic numbers 9 and 11, so that they were constantly involving these. But something like The Simpsons, now we know Mr. Burns, I forgot his name in real life. Mr. Burns, the guy who does the voice of Mr. Burns, he did the Teddy Bear's Picnic in response to Alex Jones's Bohemian Grove. Harry Shearer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. In the
control room.
He is a Bohemian Grover. We know that he's involved in these secret societies. So when he's showing, when The Simpsons is showing something like 9/11 with the Twin Towers, then it's a different symbol. Then we know it's kind of a predictive programming. But what I see now is the leading into the satanification of America as they start to destroy the youth through princess warrior programming and leading us towards the dark hero. And if you want to go to the dark hero imagery, the one right before that one, sorry. This is where we see the symbolism of what's going on and how they're projecting it into the children. So in 2000, they killed Superman. Now, Superman actually could be classified as a Nephilim, but we won't get into that. They killed Superman, this great hero, and they replaced him with clones, but the clones didn't really take off, so he was replaced by Hellspawn, whose job was to fight rapist pedophiles. And that's comic book characters for your children. At the same time, they destroyed Batman. They killed Bruce Wayne, or they broke his back anyway. Same time, 2000. And they replaced him with this character known as Azrael. And Azrael, of course, is the fallen angel in the Book of Enoch that taught warfare and all of the destruction to mankind.
Well, this is, when you talk about these comic books, I like to remind people that Tim McVeigh was an avid comic book reader. He had spent at least $1,000, well, growing up, he had this extensive comic book collection. He lived in this fantasy created by comic books. Think, people.
Well, it's the initial programmer. It's the one that hits the youth the first, And I'm kind of pushing us a little bit
Sure.
because I'm hoping to inspire a bunch of people to come out to
Yeah.
Winnings Coffee tomorrow
Yeah.
and get the deeper insights of all of this stuff. 7 years now I've been talking. I've got 6 DVDs that I've produced once each year, getting into all things from corporate logos to the Goddess Columbia to the hand signs and gestures of the Illuminati. I've spoken with Christian ministers, Satanists, and everyone in between, Freemasons and everything else. And I have an image that seems to pan out, and I consistently get my predictions right. And that's why I don't mind being called a conspiracy theorist,
Okay.
because I actually get it right. And so if you're a theorist that actually gets your theories right, it's like being a good physicist, So I would love to just tantalize the people with a little bit of what I'm going to show them tomorrow. And if we could just show maybe the satanification of America.
Sure.
This is a slightly off the chart without all the prelim. Now, we've discussed all the satanic symbolism. We've discussed the 666, the 9/11, the W's, the fallen angels, and all of that. But Barack Obama, the very words Barack Obama in the language of Jesus means lightning from heaven. Lightning from heaven is the very description of Satan in the Bible. Okay, well, Barack Obama came to us with a catchphrase that was, "Yes, we can." Well, I want to show you one of Satan's favorite tricks, which is backmasking, and just exactly what you get out of "Yes, we can"
Yes, we
when you
can.
play it backwards.
Okay. So we can go to that then.
Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan.
We're gonna spread happiness. We're gonna spread freedom.
Thank you, Satan.
Obama's gonna change it. Obama's gonna lead
you, Satan.
'em. We're gonna change it
Yes, we can.
and rearrange it.
Thank you, Satan.
We're gonna change the world. Now's the moment where he's wants to sing. Sing with all your heart.
Thank you, Satan.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Thank you, Satan. The Holy Quran teaches that whoever kills an innocent it is as if he has killed all mankind.
We're gonna spread happiness. We're gonna spread freedom. Obama's gonna change it. Obama's
I was actually born
gonna
on Krypton.
lead 'em. We're gonna change it and rearrange it.
I'm a Christian.
My Muslim faith.
We're gonna change the world.
Okay, perfect. That's a perfect spot right there.
Oh, okay. So we're
Okay.
back live again, and
So let me just throw
sure.
out that the whole symbolism that you see there is where he says, "I'm a Christian, my Muslim faith." These are he's speaking of his Muslim faith. It was a slip of the tongue. And Albert Pike had outlined 3 world wars, the Third World War being the Zionists versus the Muslims. And so everything from the Muslims stopping the Freemasons from capping the Great Pyramid to gold to Barack Obama's catch whether he's Christian or Muslim, and then of course the phrase "Thank you, Satan," clearly putting out there, is all part of the program, and it was outlined by the Freemason Albert Pike and has been
so
carrying
that's in
forth.
Morals and Dogma.
That was a letter he wrote to,
Oh,
to
letter.
Mazzini, who was the head of the mafia, and outlined the 3 world wars.
I'd like to remind people that, again, Albert Pike was a founder of the Ku Klux Klan. There's actually a statue of him in Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia.
I have an amazing photography section on freemantv.com. You'll see inside every one of these temples. I've been to them all. I've taken all the photo and film. So freemantv.com, you're going to find 7 years of deep research and all of the things that I can bring you.
I mean, you go into them and they have their Egyptian room, and people claim I don't know, that Freemasonry has been with us for thousands of years before the advent of Christianity, Judaism, and the faiths that they followed in Babylon, Sumer. So very interesting. And again, we call upon our viewers to read up on this, to think about this, look at the symbolism of September 11, 2001. As I said again, the Pentagon construction was started on September 11th. Chile, there was a coup on September 11th, 1973. And I'd like to remind people again, if we can get the flyer up on there, that Freeman will be at RB Winnings tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m., 111 Harvard Southeast. And you'll lecture, and you'll have a question and answer period after that, your
Right.
lecture, and you'll bring your DVDs, and we again, we have only a few minutes. If I'd like to sum up, what do you see with all the studies you have been doing of this symbolism, the study of the occult, and these secret societies, which a lot of our presidents belong to and don't even say anything about.
No, even Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah, they caught him on TV recently with his Masonic ring, and he's like, "Of course I am." Well, okay, what I see absolutely is a program of the destruction of America, and the key ingredients that I'm going to throw at you right now is, one, I see a 7/4 or July 4th event at the Temple Mount. I expect the Pope or the Vatican to take the Temple Mount back, really sparking World War III by that event. I expect Barack Obama to fulfill the 10 regional governors of the UN. I expect him to remain in power, to go through his lame duck status so that he can bring in all these draconian legislations. And I think that Ron Paul is there just to keep you thinking that you've got someone on your side. And so I'm firmly certain that Barack Obama will be here to herald the incoming of asteroids and aliens, as Werner von Braun had predicted. And I've shown clearly that that is the next step in the fear factor, is the incoming asteroid, and following that, the alien invasion. But to keep it on the earth, I would say the 10 regional governors coming out of Barack Obama, the combination of the youth or the spy kids, so the Boy Scouts commanding by Homeland Security, and the Institute of World War III using the Temple Mount as the main impetus for the anger.
We have a little less than a minute here. Again, Freeman, I'd like to thank you for coming by, bringing up these very interesting, what we have very seldom talked about here, the symbolism of September 11, 2001. And I'd like to remind people that come Monday, I believe Bob will be here, and he'll have his show, 9/11 New Pearl Harbor. And I'm going to try to be back the week after. And again, I want to start talking about, how does this affect us spiritually, not only physically, but spiritually. And again, tomorrow night, 6:30, 111 Harvard Southeast. And we'll see you come Monday. So come on out to RB Winnings Coffee at Harvard.
Good night.
Well, thanks.
Nice.
Thank you.